The Bright family's real Aerys had a strange quirk. She acted like a baby. She ate from a tiny plastic bowl, slept in a cradle, and insisted on being pushed around in a stroller whenever she went out. When she moved back home, she had our prestigious law firm redecorated like a pastel nursery. Conference rooms turned into playrooms. The staff kitchen into a cafeteria that served parade and rice cereal. Client coffee replaced with handmixed formula, warm and frothy in little bottles. Grown-ups are yucky, she'd say. Nose wrinkling like the world smelled bad. We need to purify everything with childlike innocence. Racked with guilt over losing her as a child, my parents catered to her every whim. Even my fiancé, Bruce, urged me to understand. Eloise, he'd say, soft and reasonable. You had her life for 20 years. Can't you be more tolerant? In my last life, I tried. On the final hearing of the biggest case our firm had ever handled, the entire court waited while Vivi Bright took her baby nap. The judge fumed. The courtroom buzzed. Our client's stock hovered on a knife's edge. $300 million on the line. So I stepped up. I delivered a defense so precise it felt like surgery. Clean, controlled, devastating. I found the one loophole hidden inside a mountain of documents. The one crack in the prosecution's perfect chain. We won. I saved our client $300 million. And I earned my partnership. Vivi, humiliated, stormed off to the rooftop afterward, drank too much, stumbled too close to the edge, and never came back down. My parents and Bruce blamed me. You snatch everything. They hissed. It was a guaranteed win, yet you stole it. And then they made sure I paid. They didn't just cut me out. They let people who hated me take turns teaching me a lesson for the girl who couldn't stay in her place. Every grudge I'd ever defeated in court came back to collect one by one until my world narrowed to pain, betrayal, and one burning thought. If I ever get another chance, I won't beg for love from people who only know how to take. When I opened my eyes again, I was back. Back to the day Vivi demanded the case. This time I didn't freeze. I didn't plead. I didn't try to be the good daughter. This time I walked straight into the opposing firm. You want a guaranteed win? Fine. I'll make you lose everything, sis. Vivi sang, voice clawing and sweet enough to rot teeth. Pretty. Please let Vivi have the case. The sound scraped my nerves. Vivi Bright stood in the middle of the office dressed in a custom-made pink onesie, her hair in childish pigtails, practically draped over Bruce's arm like she belonged there. She pouted up at him, blinking too slowly, too deliberately. Maybe wants to try the Hawk Industries case. Bruce looked at me, his face set in that familiar mask of weary apology. Eloise, Viv's new to the firm. She needs a confidence boost. You have so many cases on your plate. Why not let her take this one for practice? His gaze was gentle, almost tender, but a cold tremor slid down my spine anyway. In my last life, it was Bruce who delivered the final betrayal. The last person I expected, the last voice I heard, low and vicious, telling me I owed Vivi everything. Now standing here in the bright, polished hallway of the Bright law firm, I kept my face still. My father, standing behind them with an actual baby bottle in his hand like it was a prop, scowled at me. You enjoyed 20 years of her life, he snapped. Are you really going to fight her over a small open and shut case? Small case. I nearly laughed. Hawk Industries wasn't small. They were accused of commercial fraud, and the plaintiff was coming for blood. $300 million was only the number written on paper. The real stakes were reputation, survival, power. The prosecution had a rock-solid chain of evidence. In my last life, I'd pulled 15 all-nighters, digging through thousands of pages to find a single opening that could flip the entire trial. That guaranteed win had been bought with my exhaustion, my health, my time. I swallowed the storm inside me until my voice came out frighteningly calm. Fine, I said. The case is hers. The tension in the room evaporated instantly, like someone had opened a window. Vivi squealed and planted a loud, wet kiss on Bruce's cheek. Yay. Now baby gets to stand in court with her favorite Bruce. Bruce stiffened, glancing at me in a quick flash of panic. Eloise, don't get the wrong idea. Bea just has the mindset of a child. She's like that with everyone she likes. It doesn't mean anything. He'd said the same thing before in my last life. He'd even scolded me for having filthy adult thoughts about something pure. Except I'd never seen Vivi kiss anyone else. Only Bruce. And always when I was there to see it. I curved my lips into a faint smile that didn't reach my eyes. I understand, I said. Since Vivi is taking the case, I'll step down. I'll organize all the materials for her. Wait. My father's voice cut through me like a hook. You've been on this case for a long time. You have courtroom experience. His smile was thin, satisfied. You'll be Viv's assistant. It'll be a glorious moment for the Bright family when you two sisters win this together. He didn't say the rest out loud. And if we lost, I would be the scapegoat they offered to Gideon Hawk to absorb his wrath. My father's expression softened when I lowered my head in silent agreement. He came over and patted my shoulder like a benevolent king. Don't worry, Eloise. We'll be fair to both of you. We won't play favorites. In my last life, that empty promise had moved me to tears. I've been desperate for their approval, even knowing they only adopted me because my eyes faintly resembled their lost daughters. The moment Vivi returned, they looked at me with nothing but contempt, Like I was a cheap counterfeit they were finally allowed to throw away. Vivi's sticky voice snapped me back. Bruce, she chirped. Which lawyer robe should baby wear? The pink one with the little lambs or the blue one with the little stars? Bruce stroked her headingly. No matter what you wear, our Vivi will be the most dazzling star in the room. He used to say that to me after victories, ruffling my hair, leaning close, whispering, my Eloise always so dazzling. Now that word along with the people I'd once called my family, and my love belonged to Vivi. I waited downstairs for a long time before Bruce and Vivi finally appeared. Her outfit was even more absurd than I expected. A dinosaur onesie complete with a wagging tail. She bounced to the car and climbed into the front passenger seat like it was her throne. And then I saw it. Bruce's Mercedes had a pink child safety seat installed in the front. The sharp clicks of a 5-point harness echoed as he buckled her in. Smooth, practiced, effortless. Not his first time. He caught my stare and cleared his throat. Uncomfortable. Vivi says she gets scared in the car. The safety seat offers better protection. Vivi waved her fists in protest. Baby's not scared. Baby just values her life. I turned to the window, letting my face go blank. We arrived at Hawk Industries, and the moment we stepped into the conference room, the air changed. Gideon Hawk was already waiting. His eyes, dark and unreadable, like ink pulled in a glass, swept past Bruce and me, and landed on Vivi. His brow twitched almost imperceptibly. Bruce bowed slightly. Mr. Hawk, this is the lead counsel our firm has assigned to your case. Miss Vivi Bright. Hawk's expression didn't change. He extended a hand. Vivi jumped backward like he tried to touch her with something dirty. Strangers are icky, she declared. Baby is clean. Baby doesn't touch strangers. The room froze. The secretary at the door looked like she'd swallowed a cough. Bruce went pale. He scrambled to salvage it. Mr. Hawk, I apologize. B is pure-hearted. She likes to joke around. Hawk slowly withdrew his hand. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't smile, but the temperature in the room dropped anyway. I stood to the side, silent, watching him. Gideon Hawk's reputation was legendary, ruthless, relentless, a man with a past no one spoke about out loud. He wasn't the kind of man who played along with anyone's games, least of all a grown woman performing babyhood like a weapon. Bruce, sensing danger, pushed forward. Vivi is the sole daughter of the Bride family, he said quickly. She may be eccentric, but she's a legal prodigy. She scored first in the state on the bar exam. Vivi propped her chin on her hands and blinked dramatically. Uncle Gideon, she cooed. Baby looked at your case. It's super easy. The other side is a bunch of big meanies. Baby will definitely win and make them cry. Hawk's brow furrowed. He turned to me. Eloise Bright. His voice was low, controlled, anger packed tight beneath it. You were handling my case before. Then, without looking away, are you certain this woman is competent? I held his gaze calmly. After a beat, I turned to Vivi, my tone suddenly formal. Vivi, I said, this case involves a $300 million settlement. More than that, it involves the future of the Bright law firm. Are you sure you want to take this on? Vivi's face twisted. The sugary baby act slipped for half a second, revealing something sharp and ugly underneath. What are you trying to say, sis? She snapped. You think baby is going to lose? Baby is super smart. She stomped her foot, the dinosaur tail wagging behind her like a warning flag. Bruce rushed to sue her, then turned back to Hawk, voice desperate. Mr. Hawk, Eloise has been emotional since Vivi came back. Viv's abilities are absolutely not in question. Gideon Hawk's gaze moved between the three of us. Finally, he spoke flat and vinyl. I'm not interested in your family drama. I only care about results. He leaned back slightly, eyes glinting like polished steel. Win this case and your firm will be at the top of this city's food chain. A pause. Lose it, and I'll make sure the consequences are unforgettable. We were politely escorted out. Back in the car, Vivi's lower lip trembled and tears spilled down her cheeks. He was mean to baby, she sniffled. He scared baby. Bruce fumbled to wipe her tears, then pulled a lollipop from the pocket of his tailored suit like he'd planned for this exact moment. I opened my door and stepped out. Where are you going? Bruce called after me, sharp with frustration. I stood at the curb and raised my hand for a cab. I'm going back to organize the case files for Vivi. He stared like I'd committed a crime. You could at least try to be nicer. Can't you see Vivi's crying? A taxi rolled up. I smiled, pleasant and empty. Coming the baby is your job, I said. My job is to make sure the baby doesn't crash and burn. I shut the door. The sound cut off Vivi's sobs and Bruce's furious face like a clean slice. The taxi wasn't as fast as the Mercedes. By the time I returned to the firm, Vivi was already curled into our mother's arms, wailing. Mommy, everyone was bullying baby. Uncle Gideon was mean to me, and Eloise was mean to me too. She hiccuped dramatically, even gagging a little from crying too hard. My mother's face crumpled with sympathy. Then she looked up at me, eyes blazing. Eloise Bright, she snapped. What did you do now? Bruce rushed in behind me, trying to intervene. Auntie, it's a misunderstanding. Eloise was just I cut him off, voice steady. I told her this case was important, I said, and that she should take it seriously. The slap landed so fast I barely registered the motion. Heat bloomed across my cheek. My ears rang. But I still heard my father's voice, furious and loud enough to turn heads down the corridor. We raised you for 20 years so you could threaten BB like this. He barked. You really think you're something special, don't you? Without the Bright family, you'd be nothing. His finger jabbed toward the door. Gab, get out of my sight. As of today, the Bright family has no one like you. Security escorted me out like I was a stranger. My desk items were dumped into a cardboard box and tossed onto the curb outside. Pens rolled into the gutter. Folders slid open. Paper scattered. I crouched down and began picking everything up in silence. Bruce hurried after me, lowering his voice like he was doing me a favor. Eloise, stop this. Just apologize. I'll help you. I'll plead your case for you. I looked up at him. The man I had loved with everything in me. He'd watched me get hit and said nothing. Now he was telling me to apologize. My fingers brushed something cold and smooth. The framed family portrait from my desk. I stared at it for one heartbeat. Then I stood, walked to the nearest trash can and dropped it in. Bruce went still. An hour later, I was sitting in Ethan Cole's office, meeting his inquisitive gaze head-on. The Hawk Industries fraud case, I said. I want to be counsel for your plaintiff. For a moment he just stared. Then a soft laugh escaped him. Why? My voice came out like ice. Because Hawk is going to lose, I said, and I don't want it to affect my win rate. Ethan's expression shifted, amusement fading into something sharper. His gaze flicked to my cheek. What happened to your face? I was slapped. By who? Mr. Bright. His eyebrow rose. Your adoptive father. I didn't blink. My former adoptive father. Ethan chuckled once, then sobered, leaning forward. Are you sure you want this case? He asked. It means going head-to-head with a Bright family, with Hawk Industries, and with your fiancé. There's no turning back. I looked out the window. The sky was gray, heavy with rain that hadn't decided whether to fall. But my mind was crystal clear. I never looked back, I said. Ethan's smile returned, slow, dangerous, approving. He extended his hand across the desk. Welcome to the battlefield. A week later, the third courtroom of the city's mid-level court was packed. My former parents sat rigid in the first row of the gallery, dressed in their best clothes like they were attending a gala instead of a hearing that could end their firm. Bruce stood near the defense table, checking his watch every 30 seconds, sweat beading along his hairline. The defense lawyer's chair was empty. Vivi hadn't shown up. The judge had already taken his seat and was flipping through the case file. The court clerk kept glancing toward the door, irritation creeping over his face. When I walked in and took my place at the plaintiff's table, both Mr. and Mrs. Bright visibly flinched. Mr. Bright practically lunged toward me, rage squeezing his words into a hiss. What are you doing here? You're not our lawyer anymore. Still not satisfied? I met his bloodshot eyes calmly. I'm here to sit in, I said as a spectator and as opposing counsel. He opened his mouth to curse me again, but the judge's voice cut through the courtroom. Where is the defense counsel? He asked, frowning. It's 2:05 p.m. Court was scheduled for 2. We will wait 5 more minutes. If counsel does not appear, it will be treated as waiving the right to a defense. Bruce's face turned even paler under Gideon Hawk's cold stare from the gallery. His posture stiffened to the point of cracking. He stood up and bowed slightly toward the bench. Your Honor, this is Bruce Carter representing the Bright law firm. Attorney Viv Bright may be delayed due to traffic. We ask for the court's understanding. Traffic is not an excuse, the judge snapped, cutting him off. This is a $300 million fraud case, not a coffee date. Court has its own discipline. Minutes ticked away, heavy and loud. At the edge of that 5-minute grace period, Bruce finally broke. He surged to his feet again. Your Honor, we request permission to substitute counsel, he said, voice tight. Attorney Eloise Bright is also an experienced defense lawyer from our firm. She can take over representation. Every gaze in the courtroom swung toward me. Even my former parents stared, a flicker of desperate hope buried under their resentment. The judge adjusted his glasses. Miss Eloise Bright, he said. Are you willing to step in his defense, counsel? I could feel Bruce's stare on my face, a silent plea. I didn't look at him. I can't, Your Honor, I said slowly. I was formally terminated by the Bright law firm a week ago. I no longer work for them. Bruce's composure cracked. Eloise, this isn't the time to throw a tantrum, he blurted. That termination was just talk. You can come back anytime. I shook my head. I'm not throwing a tantrum, I said. I'm stating a fact. I do not represent the Bright family. Mr. Bright shot to his feet, fury blotching his face. Vivi's running late and you can't wait to take advantage, can you? He shouted, putting on a show in front of the court. Order. The judge barked, gavel slamming down. One more outburst and I will have you removed. Mr. Bright fell silent, trembling. And then from the doorway, a saccharine voice rang out. Baby's here. Baby's here. The gallery parted instinctively. A giant pink baby walker rolled into the courtroom, its plastic wheels squeaking on the polished floor. Seated inside, dressed in a frilly doll-style dress and a plush sleep cap, was Vivi. She clutched the walker's bar with both hands, wobbling herself forward one tiny step at a time. Behind her, a terrified assistant followed, lugging an oversized diaper bag bulging with bottles, wipes, and a stuffed giraffe. The courtroom went silent. The only sound was the soft rumble of plastic wheels as the walker bumped its way down the aisle to the defense table. Vivi popped her pastel pacifier out with a little wet sound. Cheeks puffed in a pout. Baby didn't even get a proper nap. She complained. Why does court have to start so early? The judge just stared at her momentarily, forgetting to even reach for the gavel. Attorney Carter. He managed finally, voice unsteady. You're telling me this is your defense counsel? Bruce looked down at Vivi, who was awkwardly trying to climb into the lawyer's chair from her walker, and forced a tender smile. Your Honor, please rest assured, he said. Our counsel's professional capabilities are solid. As for personal habits, I don't believe they are relevant to her legal skills. The judge's mouth twitched. For a second, it seemed like he might just get up and leave. Instead, he sighed deeply. Very well, he said. If both sides are present, we'll proceed. Court is now in session. The gavel came down. Plaintiff's counsel, please present your claims. I rose, cradling the file in my hands. Under the weight of every stunned stare, I walked to the podium and bowed my head toward the bench. Your Honor, members of the panel, I said, voice steady and clear. My name is Eloise Bright. I represent the plaintiffs in this case. The thud behind me was Bruce's chair hitting the floor. He had leapt to his feet without even realizing it, jaw slack. Viv's pacifier dropped out of her hand and rolled across the floor. Sis, she shrieked. How can you stand with the bad guys? Order. The judge snapped, gavel cracking down again. Defense counsel, control your client. One more interruption, and I will hold you in contempt. Inside, I almost laughed. Good guys, bad guys. A professional litigator only has one side, the side they choose to stand on. I opened the file in front of me and began to read out the claims clause by clause, number by number. The evidence chain I built clicked into place like finely tuned gears. Contract terms, financial flows, forged documents, insider communications. Every piece of it was designed to leave no room to breathe. In the gallery, Gideon Hawk shifted in his seat, fingers steepled, eyes fixed on me. It wasn't the gaze of a man furious at losing. It was a look of a hunter who had just spotted another predator crossing into his territory. Based on Section 23 and Section 107 of the contract law, I concluded. My client's request that Hawk Industries be ordered to compensate damages totaling. Baby has to pee. Viv's shrill voice sliced through the courtroom. Her hand shot up, bells on the baby walker jingling wildly as she squirmed. Baby can't hold it. Baby can't hold it. Bruce, I really have to go. The judge's eye twitched. Attorney Bright, he said through clenched teeth. Please control your client's personal needs. Vivi bounced harder, the little bells chiming like an alarm. Can't. Baby's going to explode. Somewhere in the gallery, someone choked on a laugh. The judge squeezed his eyes shut, inhaled deeply, and snapped. Recess for 5 minutes. Defense counsel, deal with this, then we will continue properly. Bruce practically dragged Vivi toward the restroom, diaper bag swinging wildly. As the courtroom emptied in a murmur of incredulous whispers, Ethan appeared at my side, handing me a bottle of water. Nice pacing, he said quietly. His fingers brushed the back of my hand, warm, steady. Don't let her circus throw you off your rhythm. I won't, I said. I'd seen far worse than a grown woman pretending to be 3. 5 minutes later, court resumed. I finished presenting our claims, then stepped back. The judge turned to the defense table. Defense counsel, he said. You may now challenge the plaintiff's evidence. Silence. Vivi was face down on the table, arms spread, breathing slow and deep. A little line of drool had soaked into the corner of the case file. Bruce nudged her shoulder. Bae, he whispered. Wake up. It's your turn. She snuffled, rubbing her eyes with balled fists. Why is everyone so loud? She mumbled. Baby's nap wasn't long enough. This time, the chuckles in the gallery couldn't be stifled. The judge's expression hardened. Attorney Bright, he said sharply. If you sleep in my courtroom again, I will consider holding you in contempt. Bee's head jerked up, eyes wide. Court is so scary, she whimpered, diving into Bruce's arms. He scared Baby. The judge stared at her for a full 10 seconds, then dropped his gaze. Exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Recess for 1 hour, he said. When we reconvene, Attorney Bright, I expect you to be fully awake. The gavel hit the block with a dull, frustrated thud. The moment he left the bench, the courtroom exploded. Voices rose in layered waves, mockery, disbelief, outright laughter. Reporters scribbled furiously. A few younger attorneys had their phones out, trying and failing to hide that they were recording. Mr. Bright and my former mother surged toward me, but were intercepted by the baifs. Mr. Bright jabbed a shaking finger in my direction. Eloise Bright, what are you trying to do? He shouted. Are you trying to destroy the Bright family? My mother's carefully painted face cracked under the strain. Mascara smudged. Eloise, honey, please, she pleaded, voice shaking. Stop this. Mom is begging you. Don't make trouble anymore. I sat at the plaintiff's table, calmly organizing the next set of exhibits, not bothering to look up. Bruce's shadow fell across the files. Why? He demanded quietly. Why are you doing this? Just because we let BB take Hawk's case, you turn on us, on me? His indignation would have been comical if it hadn't been so pathetic. You seem to be forgetting something, I said, still flipping pages. You kicked me out. You fired me. I found a new job with my own abilities. What exactly is wrong with that? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I took a step closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. You'd better pull yourself together, I murmured. You can't rely on Vivi. If you don't wake up now, you're going to lose this case completely. His gaze flicked almost involuntarily toward the gallery. Gideon Hawk was speaking quietly with his assistant. Every so often, he glanced toward the defense table with a look that could frost glass. Color drained from Bruce's face. Beside him, Baby tugged at his sleeve. Baby's hungry, she wed. Baby wants cake. Bruce, go buy baby cake. He shook her hand off so hard she flinched. Shut up, he snapped. Sit down and be quiet. Bae froze. It was the first time I'd ever seen him raise his voice at her. Her eyes filled instantly, but this time she didn't dare cry out loud. She just stared at me over Bruce's shoulder, gaze simmering with pure childish hatred. An hour later, the judge returned, his black robe sweeping as he took his seat. Attorney Vivi Bright, he said, eyes dark. If you fall asleep again during these proceedings, I will seriously consider a contempt charge. Is that clear? Vivi shrank into her chair, nodding furiously. Yes, poor uncle, she squeaked. Baby will be good. Defense, the judge said, turning to Bruce. You may proceed with your challenge to the plaintiff's evidence. Bruce stood, clutching the thick stack of materials I had prepared in my previous life, the ones he'd taken for granted. For the plaintiff's first piece of evidence. He began stumbling slightly over the words. The defense believes, he launched into a clumsy explanation, citing the wrong section numbers, mixing up dates. By the third point, even the court reporter looked pained. I raised my hand. Objection, Your Honor, I said. The defense is wasting the court's time with unclear and irrelevant argument. We request that counsel move directly to his actual challenges. Objection sustained, the judge said sharply. Attorney Carter, please be concise and accurate. The court is not here to listen to you ramble. Bruce swallowed and flipped to the next page. His hand stilled. That page was blank except for one neat line I'd written in tiny script at the corner. Here, insert detailed rebuttal to evidence 3 based on the civil code provisions already flagged in the attached memo. The attached memo, the hours of analysis, case law, cross-references I'd stayed up nights assembling, did not exist. He had never bothered to review it. Why would he? In his mind, my work would always be there, ready to save him, no matter how little he prepared. The judge cleared his throat. Attorney Carter, he said, we're waiting. Bruce opened his mouth. No sound came out. Across the aisle, Gideon Hawk let out a quiet exhale through his nose, barely more than a breath. It landed like a thunderclap. Bruce's knees buckled. He dropped back into his chair, speechless. From that point on, the trial collapsed into a one-sided execution. Every claim I raised, every statute I cited, went unanswered. Every time the judge gave the defense an opening, Bruce fumbled it or stared at the page like it had turned to static. Levy clutched her stuffed giraffe and sniffled loudly whenever it looked like someone might be mad at her. 3 hours later, the gavel came down for the final time. Given the evidence presented and the applicable law, the judge said, this court rules in favor of the plaintiffs. Hawk Industries is ordered to compensate the plaintiffs in full. The defendant's motions are dismissed. We had won, not by a hair, by a landslide. Gideon Hawk rose smoothly, straightened his jacket, and walked past the defense table. He paused just long enough to glance down at the Bright family and Bruce. You've done an impressive job, he said mildly. Truly, Mr. Bright fainted. Outside the courthouse, the setting sun bled across the sky like a smear of paint. Mr. Bright leaned heavily on my former mother, his face ashy and hollow. Vivi trailed behind them without her walker, steps small but steady, so she could walk just fine. Bruce toward me, eyes rimmed red. Are you happy now? He demanded. For one case, for one chance to show off. You destroyed the Bright firm. You destroyed our family. Was it worth it? My mother's composure disintegrated completely. Gone was the sleek socialite. In her place stood a woman on the edge. Hair asked you. Voice ragged. You ungrateful little snake, she screamed. We raised you for 20 years. Fed you, clothed you, sent you to law school, and this is how you repay us. You've beaten us half to death in public. I stopped and turned slowly to face them. You didn't raise me because you loved me, I said quietly. You raised me because I looked a little like the daughter you lost. They froze. You wanted to stand in, I continued. Someone to soothe your guilt. To dress up, to mold, to break until she resembled your memory. My voice stayed calm, but I could feel the old pain flickering just beneath the surface like heat behind glass. When I grew too tall, I said, you had a doctor adjust my bones so I wouldn't tower over the height. You remembered. When your real daughter's favorite food turned out to be mangoes, you served them at every meal, even after my allergies sent me to the ER. When I gained weight in high school, you put me on a cleanse, water only, for a week until I ended up in the hospital with internal bleeding. Their faces went slack. Before Vivi came back, I was your doll, I said. After she returned, I became her stepping stone. Every case, every win, every hour of my life was laid under her feet. Bruce stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Why didn't you ever tell me? He whispered. I looked at him, and for the first time I realized his concern hurt less than nothing. Would it have mattered? I asked. He had no answer. Mr. Bright, who had regained consciousness just in time to hear my words, wheezed with anger. So what? He spat. If you hadn't looked like Vivi, I'd never have spent a dime on you. You owe the Bright family for your entire life. I laughed. It came out low and sharp. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened a notes app filled with neat calculations. Since college, I said, I paid my own tuition with scholarships and loans. As for what you spent on me before that, I kept track every cent. I swiped to the next page. The legal fees your clients paid for the cases I handled. The ones that saved your firm from collapse at least 3 times over. They've already repaid you several times what you ever spent on me. They stared stunned. Bruce grabbed for my wrist. Eloise, don't do this, he said hoarsely. We were wrong. Okay. It was unfair, but we can fix it. Come back. We'll regroup, appeal the judgment, work with Gideon to negotiate. You're forgetting something, I said softly. This was the final appeal. There is no higher court. Gideon Hawk will pay that $300 million. And so will you. All color drained from their faces. A sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb. Ethan stepped out, hands in his pockets. "Tai låsen är apräxen." Eloise, he called. Get in. I didn't bother looking back at the Brights. As I reached for the door, Bruce's shout cut through the air. You think you've won? He yelled. Gideon Hawk isn't someone you can just beat and walk away from. He'll come for you. He never lets anything go. Watch your back, Eloise. I slid into the passenger seat. The door closed on his warning like the lid of a box. Night fell as the car glided through the city. Neon blurred against the windows, smearing into streaks of color. Ethan drove one-handed, the other resting on the wheel, relaxed in a way that only very dangerous men ever truly are. He picked up a pack of cigarettes from the console and offered it to me. Smoke, he asked. I shook my head. Quip, I said. In my last life, I smoked too much. His hand paused. What? Nothing. I plucked the pack from his fingers and dropped it back into the compartment. Just saying. Today feels like I've lived this once already. That's all. He studied my face for a moment. Whatever he saw there, he accepted. The car fell into a comfortable quiet. Then he chuckled under his breath. You were brutal in there, he said. No exitruts, no merci. No wonder they call you the Iron Queen. Half admiration, half an insult, I asked. Something like that, he said. My mind drifted to my first big case years ago in my previous life. I'd represented a ruthless developer against homeowners who were being forced out of a neighborhood their families had lived in for generations. The opposing counsel had beneath him. I'd shredded his arguments, cornered his witnesses, left his clients with nothing. I remember that one, he said as if reading my thoughts. You left me so furious. I didn't speak to anyone for 3 days. I remembered something else. The old man in a worn jacket outside the courthouse, eyes blazing with a grief that wouldn't burn out. My son died after they evicted us. He'd said, this is your karma, lawyer. One day it'll come back. Other faces came with his. A mother who had lost her daughter to a defective vaccine. An investor whose savings had been swallowed whole by Hawk's fraud. In my last life, some of those people had stood over me at the end, their expressions a mix of rage and a terrible satisfaction. As if I were the bill come due. I did my best for my clients, I said softly. I don't regret that. But I used to think being a lawyer meant standing wherever the money was. When first asked nothing else. I turned my head, watching the red tail light stretch into lines. Now I'm wondering, I murmured, who we should really be standing for. Ethan stopped at a red light and turned fully toward me. For your client, he said. Always for your client. Then he smiled slow and sharp. But you get to choose who your client is. The next morning, my phone practically combusted. Dozens of missed calls, hundreds of unread messages, group chat notifications stacked on top of my name sitting at the very top of the trending list. Hashtag star lawyer Eloise Bright under fire for evidence tampering. I opened one link at random. An anonymous insider had written a detailed expose about me. How I allegedly bounced between plaintiffs and defendants to hunt for weaknesses. How I supposedly bribed and coerced witnesses. How my entire evidence chain in the Hawk case was riddled with defects and morally rotten. It ended by accusing me of trying to extort money from Hawk and turning on him when he refused. The comments were a bonfire. Knew it. She's always been shady. No one wins that much without getting their hands dirty. $300 million on the line. Who knows what went on behind the scenes? Or maybe she finally grew a conscience. Nah, people like her don't. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I answered. A voice came through, distorted by a cheap voice changer. Attorney Bright. It rasped. You've made some powerful enemies. So many accidents happen every day. It wouldn't be surprising if one more lawyer disappeared, would it? The call cut off. I stared at the dark screen for a second, then turned my phone off completely. When I opened my hotel room door, Ethan stood there holding a paper bag, expressing grim. You saw? He asked. He held out the bag. Eat, he said. Then come downstairs. We're holding a press conference. The lobby of Ethan's firm was packed. Cameras, microphones, reporters crammed shoulder to shoulder. Ethan stood in front of them, posture straight, voice ringing like a bell. Regarding the accusations circulating online about attorney Eloise Bright, he said, as managing partner of Cole and Foster, I will respond directly. He looked straight into the cameras. Every step of our evidence collection in the Hawk case is recorded, he said. Every witness statement, every subpoena, every forensic report. All of it was done in full compliance with the law. The claim that Eloise coerced or manipulated witnesses is false. The suggestion that she tried to extort Hawk is false. These are defamatory statements, and our firm will pursue all available legal remedies. The murmurs in the crowd rose. And furthermore, he continued, eyes turning colder, Hawk's illegal activities do not end with this one case. We have submitted additional evidence to the district attorney's office as of this morning. He paused. If I were Gideon Hawk, I'd be a lot more worried about handcuffs than about bullying a lawyer online. The room rippled with astonished whispers. I stepped forward and set a phone on the display screen. The distorted voice crackled through the speakers, repeating its failed threat for everyone to hear. I lifted my gaze to the cameras like I was staring directly at the man hiding behind them. I'm not afraid of being threatened, I said quietly. I've never been good at backing down. If anything, pressure just makes me more stubborn. We left through the back entrance. Only when we slid into the car did Ethan exhale, unclenching his jaw. His palm was damp where it had been pressed against my elbow. Gideon probably wants you gone more than ever now, he said. He's impulsive when cornered. I smiled faintly. I know, but I doubt he'll come for me directly, I added. He can't. Not with this much attention. He'll go after easier targets first. Like the Brights, Ethan said. Like the Brights. I agreed. We were right. Within days, video of Viv's courtroom performance went viral. Clips of her rolling in with the baby walker, demanding bathroom breaks mid-argument, nodding off on top of case files. Memes flooded every platform. Jokes about baby counsel were everywhere. Overnight, the Bright law firm transformed from old-line powerhouse into a punchline. Hawk, unable to publicly retaliate against me, redirected his fury toward them. Shady men started lingering outside the Bright's gated community, following them to their cars, twirling knives and metal pipes between their fingers. Windows shattered in the middle of the night. Alarms blared. Sleep became a stranger. Under that grinding stress, the Bright family cracked. One morning, a new video shot to the top of the trending page. Bruce and Vivi brawling in the street outside their own firm, surrounded by gawking onlookers and cops trying and failing to break them apart. Gone was Viv's baby act. She looked like a cornered animal, hair wild, eyes blazing. You promised me, she screamed, clawing at Bruce's hair. You said I'd win. You said we'd step on that worthless Eloise together. Bruce's face was strewn with tears and shallow scratches. If you hadn't played baby every waking second, we wouldn't be in this mess. He shouted back. You ruined everything. The clip went so viral that another even bigger bomb almost got missed. Almost. Hashtag Baby Council's law license exposed as fake. The accompanying article laid it all out. BB's so-called top bar exam score certificate was a poorly edited Photoshop. Her license was a bargain bin forgery bought from a street vendor. She hadn't even finished high school, had spent years running petty scams, and had a fraud charge on her record from 3 years prior, just months before the Brights miraculously found their long-lost daughter. In the police station, my former father sobbed in front of the cameras. We're victims too, he insisted. She fooled us. If we'd known, we never would have taken her in. Back in an interrogation room, Viv laughed high and hysterical. Of course I targeted them, she said. They had the big house, the firm, the money. I grew up with nothing. Why shouldn't I take what should have been mine? The authorities didn't entirely believe that the Brights had been ignorant of everything, but family dysfunction and poor judgment made for a neater headline than full-blown conspiracy. They got a scathing public lecture at a record they'd never fully shake. Vivi, meanwhile, was released. She disappeared within days. Police tracked her as far as a border town, then lost her trail. I was too busy to care. $300 million in compensation was just the opening act. Hawk's empire was riddled with rot. And once you pulled one thread, the whole thing started to come apart. Ethan and I practically lived at the firm 20-hour days. Case files spread like a paper ocean across conference tables. That was when Bruce appeared again. It was after midnight when security called up. There's a man downstairs asking for you, the guard said. Says his name is Bruce Carter. Looks rough. I hesitated. Then I went down. He stood under the awning like someone who had been left out in the rain too long. His shirt was wrinkled, stubble darkened his jaw, and the easy confidence he used to wear like cologne was gone. Eloise, he said when he saw me. Just my name. No, Lolo. No soft boy seven de Arments. What do you want? I asked. He flinched, then straightened. I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything, he said. I was wrong. I ignored you. I let them treat you like you were nothing. I stole your work. I took your loyalty for granted. He swallowed. I'm not here to beg you to come back, he added quickly. I know that bridge is burned. I waited. He exhaled and glanced around as if checking the shadows. Gideon Hawk has your parents, he said quietly. Mr. and Mrs. Bright. He had them taken. He wants you to drop the investigation or he'll hurt them. And you? Something inside me went very, very still. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled scrap of paper. When he stepped forward to grab my arm, his fingers pushed the paper into my palm. I'm being watched, he murmured, eyes shining with something like guilt. This is all I can do. Consider it paying them back for whatever kindness they showed me. He let go. Eloise, he said, voice fraying. I'm sorry. Then he turned and vanished into the night, shoulders hunched. The police moved fast. By dawn, a SWAT team had raided the warehouse address scrolled on that wrinkled scrap. They found my former parents tied to chairs in a filthy room, eyes blown wide with terror. Physically, they were barely scratched. Mentally, something had snapped. They clung to teddy bears. The officers pressed into their hands, babbling in broken, childlike phrases, flinching at every loud sound. Years of arrogance and control wiped clean in a single night of fear. Gideon wasn't so lucky. With the kidnapping added to a list that already included bribery, extortion, and several long-buried violent crimes, the prosecution finally had enough to tear him down. He was convicted and handed the harshest sentence the law allowed. Hawk Industries crumbled. Executives were indicted one after another. The empire that had once looked untouchable dissolved into asset auctions and plea bargains. The day after Gideon's sentence came down, Ethan called me into the main conference room. The partners were already there. When they slid the partnership contract across the table, my hands were steady as I signed. Welcome, partner Brightite, Ethan said, the corner of his mouth lifting. I put on a white suit and cut my hair short. In the mirror of my new office, a different woman stared back, paler, sharper, eyes clear as glass. The door opened. My assistant stepped in carrying a basket of pure white lees. There's no card, she said. I didn't need one. Across the street, Bruce had taken a job at the convenience store, stocking shelves in silence. I'd seen him once through the window, hands rough, movements careful. Throw them out, I said. The assistant blinked, then nodded and left with the flowers. Ethan leaned against the door frame, one brow raised. Not even curious who they're from, he asked. There's no need, I said. I picked up a champagne flute from the desk and clinked it lightly against his. What matters is what comes next. Then what does come next, he asked. Now that you've burned your old life down and made partner. I thought of the faces from my past cases, the ones who had lost everything and looked at me like I was the executioner. I've been following a nonprofit for a while, I said. They help domestic violence survivors with legal support, but they don't have enough experienced attorneys. I want to take some of their cases. For free, he asked. For free, I said. He laughed quietly, genuinely. All right, he said. I'll go with you. Scissors snipped through the ceremonial red ribbon, hanging across my office door. The bright strip of fabric fluttered to the ground, severed cleanly in two. In the echo of that soft, sharp sound, I felt it. The final thread of the past snapping. Eloise Bright, I thought, meeting my own gaze in the glass. This is who you were supposed to be,